Hi, everybody. These are the people in your neighborhood. So sometimes I feel like my show is like a little bit like Mr. Rogers, and I have to take off my sweater. I don't know if you grew up with Mr. Rogers like I did, and sometimes I feel a little bit like Mr. Rogers. Yesterday, I was feeling a little inside out, upside down, and backwards. I'm glad. I hope that it looks the right way on your screen, and that the Earth looks a little, the Earth yesterday. If you checked out yesterday's live at 5, was looking a little weird. I think we got it back now. You got the neighborhood. This actually does look like almost like with the red lights. It's like the pandemic tracker or something over here. Maybe it's vaccines, and these are the red zones are not so bad. Although look, it's white over here. Red. I don't know what to make of it. Don't make too much of it. It's just a background. I hope you're all doing well today. And one of the reasons I feel like Mr. Rogers today is because we're going to do a little show and tell. He was such a great, he played in the sandbox, and he would put on his little shawl, his in a cardigan sweater, and I just miss Mr. Rogers. I really do. But I have a little show and tell. Look at this great thing device I've got here today. It is a mask, like what you call that? Like you have for your glasses sometimes, like as old people, we take our blood glass off and you have a clip. So I got a mask clip today. I could wear my mask, and when I take it off, then it just doesn't go anywhere because I got this jazzy blue clip. Isn't that fantastic? And that was a good friend of mine, Sandy Schwartz, made that. She makes those, and I was so delighted to have one. I feel like my when my wife has one of these on her glasses, she feels like a librarian. I just feel like somebody who's ready to pop their mask on and off. I'm doing my part. That's all. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I have some more lovely show and tell. Also, take a look at this. A friend of mine, another friend, Steve Kapnick, once gave me this very cool artistic round Jewish calendar. I really never saw anything like it. It's very interesting, very artistic, and it's round. So, like for example, I mean, it took me a long time to figure out how to read it. Each month, this is for Shvat, since today's Tu B'Shvat. So it's got like a tree and a root motif, and a very beautiful artwork. But in addition, if you take a look at like the calendar, it's literally like a round calendar. You could use it. I don't know if you could sort of see this on the show. Whoops. Now it thinks that's my green screen. It thinks my calendar's green. So all right, we're missing 1 month there. Now 2. Anyway, the way that you the way that you walk into them is you count the days like outwards and inwards, and then you get to Shabbos is sort of in the middle, as if to say Shabbos is the middle of the week. It's very beautiful, and a little green, and especially it's green for the month of Shvat. So thank you, Steve, for that lovely gift, and it has all the holidays on it. Today is as Tu B'Shvat is sort of slipping gently into Taz B'Shvat, because how do we write 15 is 2, and how do we write 16 is Tes Zion Taz. Um, so we don't really call it Taz B'Shvat, because there's nothing special about the 16th, but if you want to be exact. But this particular calendar lists not only holidays, both English holidays and in America, and Jewish holidays of note. It also lists, interestingly, some major yard sites, and so I talked about one yesterday, but in the calendar, this calendar points out that there was another yard site yesterday I might have mentioned, that of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. Now, you may have heard of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. He was a very eloquent American rabbinic voice. He died very young, and just a decade or two ago. But he wrote voluminously. He was I think a trained scientist. He was extremely erudite. Learned a ton of deep sources in addition to all his Talmudic study, and he wrote on some interesting mystical things. One of the books that I actually have over here on my shelf of his, since today's show and tell day, is his book on Jewish meditation. And I learned this particular book of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, Oliver Shalom's, on Jewish meditation with one of my classes. And it's really interesting. Not that I know much about meditation or I practice it, but there's a fascinating stuff in here about what kind of meditative elements really are deeply rooted in Judaism, both in prayer, when we say Shema, which is really not a prayer. It is itself a kind of a meditation, and it talks about all kinds of visualizations and fascinating things. And even if you're not someone who is interested in meditating per se, but the book is really interesting, and he has a slew of other ones. He wrote most recently, and if you're not familiar, take a look. It's great, great, great. Interesting stuff in English about Judaism from, again, he wrote in with such a modern voice that it really speaks to our world. So take a look, Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, and maybe his memory be for a blessing. His yard site was this week. We are we're heading into Tu B'Shvat, into Shabbos Shira from Tu B'Shvat. It's kind of an interesting week. I wanted to just share one more thought with the last moments of Tu B'Shvat that I heard with very beautifully from a couple of different people, including Charlie Harari, a colleague and a really respected colleague and a friend too. So the date to B'Shvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat, is frankly is a very interesting one for us to choose, that it should be somehow a special day in the life of tree fruits. I mean, if you look outside at fruit-bearing trees right now, you don't see anything. There's certainly no fruits on the trees. There's no blossoms even. There's no buds. There's nothing. I mean, the trees are all just bare. It's we're still in the midst of winter. So why would today be a day of significance and relevance in the life of a tree that bears fruits, or the fruits of that tree? And our sages themselves asked this question, and why is this the day? And they said something very interesting that is going on in that tree, which is that as a result of the fact that in Israel, where our agricultural eyes are focused, most of the rains of the year have already fallen. That now what's happening is the sap is beginning to rise up inside the tree. It's a date where something is happening, something deep inside the tree, something invisible to the naked eye. The sap is rising. That sap will eventually one day enable the tree to put out beautiful fruits that we'll enjoy later. And the only thing that happens now is deep inside the tree. Can't see it, can't really, can't really tell, can't celebrate it perhaps, but it's there. It's real, maybe hidden, but it's happening. And so that, in a sense, is like a celebration of the inner, deeper steps that we all take, the efforts that we make towards growth that right now they're not producing. Right now they're not visible. They're not ready to be seen and appreciated. They will be. But these are steps that are taking place now, efforts that we're making, and then one day will blossom into beautiful fruits, God willing. Today, Tu B'Shvat is the day to celebrate those invisible, or those early efforts. It's an incredible idea to value and to celebrate, really, to have a day which recognizes the fact that we're making efforts that people can't necessarily appreciate yet, but that we're working, and that we're developing. There's things happening now which will later blossom into beautiful successes, and into achievements, into the fruits of our lives. And as we said, a person is a little bit like a fruit tree, and our successes, our deeds, our choices that we make, those are our fruits. And so a lot of times, we're not a finished product. Not us, not the people we're close to, certainly not the world. And when we live in a crazy world, and we see around us a lot of people that are not yet finished products, it's still okay to celebrate the fact that there are efforts being made, hopefully, and certainly in our own lives. Let there be efforts made, and let's celebrate those efforts. One day, those efforts will rear their heads, and they will be visible, and they will be appreciated, and they will be recognized. They're not yet, perhaps. We're still a work in process, but we're growing, and that inner growth is the day. It's a beautiful thought for Tu B'Shvat. What a meaningful idea to be able to look inwards and to celebrate something which is not even yet recognizable. The fate beginnings of something meaningful. And there's a certain type of amazing bamboo that they grow in Asia somewhere. I've seen a beautiful sort of a story about it. And for 5 years, this little bamboo growth really doesn't do anything. It's just a small little growth, and not much is happening. And then in one year, it can grow 30 feet, but it takes 5 years of invisible growth that stays beneath the surface. You don't see anything. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't rise, it doesn't show. And then pop, 5 years later, in 1 year, this thing grows huge, massive, a 30-foot stalk of bamboo. Another sort of a tree-like metaphor for our own lives. And sometimes we work and we put an effort, whether it's in school, whether it's at work, whether it's in something we're trying to achieve personally. There's a lot of effort that goes in, and eventually, that may blossom, and hopefully, God willing, will blossom and will become something to see. So that's another. I share that with you. I heard from a couple, from Charlie and a couple of others, a beautiful insight into the date to Bishvat. As it's ending, it's coming to the buzzer, and and coming to an end. I want to just go back to the beginning of the show. I got sort of off track with Mr. Rogers and show and tell, but I want to thank a couple of other wonderful people. I happened to have the good fortune to have lunch today with two of the tremendous lay leaders of the Jewish experience. One of them, Jay Camlett, who is the outgoing chairman of the board of directors of the Jewish experience, and Adam Moskowitz, the replacement, the incoming, the new chairman of the board. And someone who steps up onto a board of an organization that they care about. It's an effort. It's time. It's energy. A lot of times, it's you put your name out there and your face, and you throw your reputation a little bit behind this organization. Hopefully, you're proud of what you're participating in. And board members are also fundraisers, and they have to go to bat for the organization. Have to ask their friends in their community to help support the organization that they care about, that they participate in. It's a big deal for a lay leader. They're not compensated. It's very altruistic, and they don't get enough thanks and appreciation. So I thought, well, after having spent a lunch with them, and I don't know if they're watching or anybody that knows them is watching, but I hereby share my tremendous gratitude, and we should all share our gratitude because the organization doesn't run without dedicated lay leaders and contributors like them, like you, like others. And we're very, very appreciative. Interestingly, in 2020, last year, as bad as a year as it was with the economy and the world upside down as it was, the Jewish experience had actually a record number of contributors. I don't know what to make that. I think it's just the most beautiful thing. I'm so appreciative. In our annual online matching campaign, we reach out to the broader community, and we had well over closer to 800 people participate in a very short span of time, which is really amazing. And all of you who are amongst that crowd, thank you for your commitment and your support. And we got to keep the tree alive. It's an interesting thing that uh, that about trees and supporting the trees. In a sabbatical year, so once every 7 years in Israel, we have a sabbatical year. I mean, sabbatical years for everybody, but it's most relevant in Israel. And in that year, we're precluded from doing agricultural work. We don't plant, and we don't harvest. We don't gather, sow, reap. The whole agricultural cycle comes to a screeching halt. Not just for one, but for all. And it's an incredible mitzvah. It's detailed in Parshas Bahar. We'll talk about it when we get there. An incredible thing to have a whole year off. I mean, imagine being a farmer and taking a sabbatical. I mean, that's where the concept of taking a sabbatical came from. A year off comes from this mitzvah. And you should know that even though when it comes to your cucumbers and when it comes to your pumpkins and your tomatoes, you can do absolutely nothing that year. There's nothing you can do. You just let the field sit. But if you have trees, if you have an orchard and you have trees, there actually are a few things that you could do because a tree is a long-term entity. And things that you would need to do just to save the life of the tree, you can do even a sabbatical year. And to some degree, I feel like that's sort of a connection to the thanks that I want to express, because last year was like a crazy year. And and a lot of things that we could do we weren't able to do. But we needed to preserve the tree. The organization, those community efforts that are made need to be preserved. Not just the Jewish experience, but all of the wonderful organizations that are out there on behalf of the community. they need to be preserved even through, through a difficult time. We need to do what we need to do to make sure that those institutions thrive. We should all be supporting institutions that we cherish and that contribute positively to our communities. Maybe it's for that reason that the financial assistance that the government offered from the SBA, the Small Business Association, actually for the first time included nonprofits this year. Mostly that the SBA doesn't offer loans to nonprofits, but only to for-profit businesses. But this year during the pandemic, they opened that purview a little wider, and they included all of the nonprofit institutions and organizations that we should be able to have some of the loan benefits that were helpful and that were offered during the pandemic. So our thanks goes out to the SBA as well as and to our and to all of our federal and state government officials who provided all kinds of helpful things. In fact, I should mention it too. The state of Colorado actually set up a fund for nonprofits that we received a grant from. I want to thank my colleague Alex Amshaslavsky for applying, unbeknownst to us, for a state grant, and we received a nice grant from them as well. So all of that together, we look back at 2020, with whatever attitude, we make whatever faces we make, but we are happy to have survived intact and to be here again to continue to serve the community for God willing for the future. It was actually, I was thinking about it. It was this week, 18 years ago, that the Jewish Experience was celebrating our first wine and cheese, our grand opening of our center in the JCC. I don't know if any of you watching were there or remember that. It was a Rabbi Feldheim spoke, and it was Tu B'Shvat and Shabbos Shira, and he was speaking, and he was talking about song because Shabbos Shira, the Shabbos of song, and I'll share you with you what he said. But it's pretty nice to think about that 18 years ago. Wine and cheeses. Here we are. We're hoping, by the way, just incidentally, we're hoping that this is not going to be the first year in 19 years without a wine and cheese. We're going to delay it a little bit and see if we could do it later in the year. So get your vaccine, wear your mask, stay healthy, and God willing, we'll see you not soon, but maybe not too far before the year gets too far away from us. We will see you for a wine and cheese, God willing. Here's what Rabbi Feldheim shared. It was really a very beautiful idea. This whole Shabbos is named for song. It's called Shabbos Shira. There's a song in the Parsha. There's a song in the Haftorah, and really a very important idea, song. In fact, later on in the Torah itself is referred to as a song. When the Torah gives us the commandment to write a Torah scroll, it's actually a mitzvah for each and every one of us, a mitzvah, a commandment to write a Torah scroll, or at least to commission one. Somebody else should write it for you, or to participate in the commissioning of a Torah scroll if you can't afford a whole one. When the Torah gives us that commandment, it says kisvu es hashira hazos. It says write this song, and it's referring to the Torah, and it refers to the Torah as a song. A song itself is the expression of the heart, if not the mind. It's an emotional expression. And Rabbi Feldheim pointed out, when the Torah was being given, in the very moment that it arrives into this world from heaven, delivered through Moses by God to mankind, and it comes out. And if you look in the parsha, it's coming up in another week or two, and it says Moshe would speak, V'Hashem Ya'anenu b'kol, and God would answer him b'kol, which means in a voice. Now, on the surface level, it's talking about the fact that everyone that was arrayed around Mount Sinai, every man, woman, and child, actually heard the voice of God that spoke the Ten Commandments. But in addition, our sages say it's an interesting way that the verse indicates this, and it also alludes to the following idea. It's Moshe spoke, and God responded about voice, as if to say about song, the voice of song. And it's as if he says, the Talmud said that God said to Moshe at that moment, don't forget to sing. Can you imagine the most important moment in all of history? The Torah is about to be given to the Jewish people. And right then, the last thing God says to Moshe is, Moshe, before I hand you this Torah, I just want to remind you, don't forget to sing. There should be song involved. The Torah is like it should be a beautiful song. It should be something we relate to emotionally. We sing it. You know, if you sit in a yeshiva, and the yeshivas, the main room of any yeshivas, it's base medrash, it's study hall where lots and lots of people tend to gather and study. You'll notice that it's a very not quiet place. It's a loud place. There's a lot of voice going on there. There's a lot of sound and lots of people typically, and speaking and learning out loud. Not only are they two sets, they're pairs, so they're talking to each other, and naturally, you know, you have to communicate with each other, so it's out loud. But even if they're by themselves, our traditional way of studying the Talmud is to sing it, so like a chant or a song, or you say it out loud, and maybe with a little tune, and you know, and it helps you to remember it, and it becomes very very meaningful. It's a song, you know. It imbues the lessons and the wisdom into the heart, not just the mind. And that's certainly something that was going on in the at the Jewish people, as the Jewish people stood at the side of the sea, as they just witnessed the greatest miracle of all of the Exodus, as the Egyptian enemy was finally once and for all completely destroyed, that they were totally saved. You know, the first time they, after the 10 plagues, they got out of Egypt, and the Egyptians ran after them, and you know, it was as if nothing had happened. They were about to be re-enslaved, but at that moment, after the Egyptian army was drowned in the sea and they were saved, it was really over. And they did nothing. They didn't lift up a finger to defend themselves. They stood, you know, quietly by, as the verse says, and Hashem said, "I'm going to take care of you." And at that moment, the Jewish people sang a song that is still resonating throughout the ages. You know, we're still singing that song. It's the it's the emotional voice of just feeling like everything you could possibly need was just done for you. Like the worst threat that was frightening you and terrifying you, and facing you was lifted off of your shoulders in one fell swoop. You know, the terror that they felt of the approaching Egyptian army, that they would be, you know, killed, would they be re-enslaved? They had no idea. They couldn't defend themselves, or weak and powerless to do so. And suddenly, in one fell shot, Hashem took care of it all and made it go away forever. It was an, you know, it's an almost unimaginable emotional reaction of joy, of appreciation, of gratitude, of celebration. They just couldn't believe it. Got so saved, and of course they just sang. The actual name of the song, if the song has a name, is Oz Yashir, the first two words. And if you translate them literally, Oz Yashir means, frankly, means then he will sing. It doesn't mean then they sang. It means then he, the Jew, or she, the Jewish people, then he will sing. Like then the Jewish people will sing, which is odd, right? I mean, isn't it telling us the story that they sang in the past tense? Why is it they will sing in the future? So one explanation is that Oz Yashir, it's just like it just came out of them. Like there was no planning, there was no forethought. Nobody said, "Okay, pass out the song sheets, you on the drums, and you're going to be on the accordion." You know, here we go. It wasn't like that. It just emerged. There was nothing else that could happen at that moment except singing. That was what they felt. That's what they had to say. How they had to respond. A very beautiful idea. They just then they sang. Then they would sing. Boom, and that's what happened. And so, you know, we celebrate the Shabbos, and the Shabbos of song. So we got to try to tap back into that moment, you know, feel that feeling. We'll make sure and join us tomorrow, as we have done for the past 4 weeks now. I think at 4:30 for 15 or 20 minutes. We'll start off with a little. We'll start your Shabbos off right before Shabbos starts, before candlelighting. We'll do a little Zoom singing, zing and Zoom. And so make sure and join us for that tomorrow. If you want the Zoom address, it's 722-632-1332. And hope you'll join. And certainly this week, when it's Shabbos Shira, it really is the way to start the Shabbos. The other thing I thought that about that you know, worth sharing, is that, you know, that emotional connection to the Exodus is really what we're striving to develop in ourselves, it's it's very hard to feel anything about an event that you didn't experience personally. You just read about it. We read the story, and and maybe the narrative of the Exodus is a gripping emotional story for you. I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. You read through the parshas, and I don't know how emotionally impactful just reading the parsha is. Certainly, hearing it in synagogue, especially if your Hebrew is not that good, it may not be that emotional an experience. But we're hoping the idea of all of the mitzvahs that we have throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year that remind us of the Exodus, and there are a lot. Your mezuzah on your doorpost reminds us of the Exodus. The mitzvah of tzitzis, of tefillin, in the prayer liturgy, every prayer service that we say, we remember the Exodus. In the morning, several times in the Shema, twice a day, we remember the Exodus. On Friday nights in Kiddush, we remember the Exodus. I mean, constantly throughout the day, week, and year, we have things, holidays, mitzvahs. We're constantly being reminded of the Exodus, and in part the hoped for result of that, of constantly thinking about it, is that we develop a kind of an emotional attachment to this story, where we can feel those feelings, and we can tap into them constantly, feeling the feelings of a salvation, of being rescued, having our fat pulled out of the fire, feeling the feelings of gratitude, of amazement, of being able to experience a miracle right in front of your very eyes, the biggest miracle of history, being able to recognize viscerally God's presence in the universe, something which to us is so difficult to feel. It's amazing. It's amazing that we're trying to do that, and all year long we're doing that. See if you could develop a little bit of heart for the feelings that are so apropos of the story of the Exodus, the narrative of the Exodus, and then that's what we're singing about. Frankly, if you'll think about the Hallel that we say, or the Friday night Kabbalat Shabbat that we sing, the Exodus is everywhere, and Judaism is not meant to be a cold thing. Jews make great lawyers, scholars. You may think of that as very dry stuff, scholarly. Somebody, in fact, one of the reasons we got this backdrop instead of like a backdrop with all the books is because I got this comment from someone that, like when you give a talk in front of the books, it's just like dry and scholarly automatically. This looks like news, big news. Jews got out of Egypt, but it really, Judaism isn't just scholarly. It's supposed to be varm. Okay, word of the day, Yiddish word of the day. Var means warm. Okay, it's the Yiddish pronunciation of the word warm, and it's supposed to be warm, bracing, emotional. It's supposed to have feelings. In the Talmud, it says, it's supposed to be like a cold stone that can't be turned over. It's supposed to be movable, like have moods, have emotions, have feelings, be real. That's the goal of a person. Being a more religious or a more holy or more righteous person doesn't mean being less emotional or having less feelings. It means having a rich emotional intelligence with deeply felt, heartfelt emotions of all the right kinds. The full range. Sometimes joy, sometimes gratitude, sometimes sadness, sometimes compassion, sometimes empathy. You're supposed to have all the emotions and be open and be warm. And singing is like that. And typically the songs that we hopefully are singing are the triumphant ones and the happy ones and the glorious ones and the appreciative ones. That's the song at the sea. That's the song of the Shabbos. So I hope that's good. We had a little something to chew on and to think about and to hum along with for Shabbos. Again, join us tomorrow for a little bit of actual song and singing and further Shabbos insights tomorrow, 4:30. And it's been great. Thanks for allowing me to do a little show and tell. And I want to wish you a healthy and a holy day. Thanks for joining us live at 5.